Hello and welcome to the last normal episode or sort of review episode of Steven University, where this week we'll be discussing the episode The Future, which is of course the final episode of Steven Universe Future and very possibly the very final episode of Steven Universe.
Jesus, what a light-hearted, jolly note to start the podcast on, Dan.
Hey, that the occasion warrants. You know, it's a weighty occasion. I wanted to note that. I wanted to identify it as being a big moment. It's a hell of a journey we've been on, and I think like that deserves making note of. True. For sure.
And I can't think of anyone better to go on this journey with, Dan. Partly because I don't know anyone else that would have forced me to go on it.
Yeah, I was waiting for the punchline. That's why I didn't say anything. I was like, he's got a punchline. I'm waiting. There were two ways that went. It was either I can't think of anyone better to do this journey on. How is your cat doing these days, or something like that? I was expecting you to like sort of diverge.
Yeah, I don't.
But yeah. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's been a long time coming, and yeah, it feels like after so much build up, like how could this episode have done what everyone was imagining it would need to do, I think is what. Yeah, so it's a tricky one. It's going to be an interesting one to review, as you've hinted in the last couple of episodes. You have some things that you sort of wish it might have done that it didn't get to, and I'll be curious to chat about that. But I suppose we should start with a recap. Yeah,
man.
Yeah,
so recap it.
So Steven's prepping to leave Beach City with Connie. It starts with him doing exercises on the beach, which is just bonkers, but we'll come back to that. And he's told everyone in Beach City that he's leaving, with the exception of Crystal Gems. He's worried about how that's going to be. He finally builds up to telling them. Nadia's favourite moment of the episode then occurs, which is them singing the Cookie Cat rap in the kitchen for the first time, giving the show sort of bookends, because the very first episode involved them all sat in a kitchen singing about Cookie Cat. Obviously this time led by the Crystal Gems, not Steven. But when he finally tells them that he's leaving, they're not that sad. They're supportive, but they're not sad about it, and they move on. And then he goes to tell the Crystal Temps, and they're devastated. And he's sort of like, I kind of wish the Gems had felt that way about it. So he tries to sort of induce emotion from them by giving them heartfelt gifts like he did to the Crystal Temps, and they don't really react the same way. So he talks to his dad as he's packing, and he's like, I don't know, am I being petty? It'd be nice. And he's like, no, they're just being supportive. Don't worry about it. He's like, okay. They all say goodbye on the beach. It's a very nice moment. Him and Connie have on-screen kiss. Actually happens finally. Thank you, universe.
Bow chicka bow. Inappropriate. Feels inappropriate. Never mind. Regret doing that.
Wow. And then he starts to drive off. The music starts to kick in, and then he pulls the brakes, goes back, and is like, "What is wrong with you people?" And they are all really teary-eyed. They can't hold it anymore. They sort of talk about how Garnet had looked in her future vision and saw a version of the future where their tears might hold him back, might make him stay. So they were trying to stay strong for him, but they have emotional goodbye. Steven drives off. One last trip through Beach City. We see a bunch of the townies, and Steven is off on his journey. Obviously, I didn't mention, but there's one of the big moments in this episode, or the big important lines in this episode is a line referencing that he's got a therapist now, which is obviously another hint towards him sort of being on the right path. This episode, though, focused mostly on telling its own little self-contained story about Steven leaving and his relationship with the Gems, and it's a really sweet piece of television, like a really very, very heartfelt one. I actually think I felt more emotional watching this one than the previous one, because those last scenes when he's saying goodbye to the Gems, it was quite meta for me, because it felt like I was saying goodbye to the Gems and Steven, and that relationship, and just seeing them all hugging on the beach was just like, that broke my heart a little bit. And then seeing Steven drive off Beach City in his rearview mirror. I found this way more emotional, because I wasn't just saying, it wasn't just a character emotional thing. I was feeling as they were feeling. They were sad that it was over and that he was leaving, and Steven's leaving my life the same way. So I felt like what I liked about this episode was of how it, was how it reflected how I imagine many of the audience felt watching it. So yeah, I'm a big fan. It definitely, there is some things that it could have potentially done to wrap up some of the other dangling threads, maybe, which I guess we'll talk about. But I think on the whole, it's a really sweet 10 minutes of saying goodbye to this character in this show and this world and Beach City. How did you feel in general, Chris?
Yeah, on the whole, I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found it incredibly heartwarming. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the genius of the fact that him driving away has been the closing credits for the entire show. Like, phenomenal. Like, especially that moment. I was like, whoa!
Yeah, that transition was godlike. And not only that, but obviously the title cards for every episode is the car at night with Beach City in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, it's so clever. I thought that was there were a lot of great moments. Mm-hmm. I thought the goodbyes were pretty much all pitch perfect. I loved the Cookie Cat stuff. I just thought it was such a sweet, knowing reference to Steven Universe. I thought there was, as you said, some nice bookending there. So like you, I found it a very sweet-natured, really enjoyable piece of television. I've just literally just rewatched it, kind of to remind myself before we talked, and especially that second viewing where I wasn't kind of overwhelmed with the stuff. I felt it didn't do as much of as I'd have liked, which I'll come to in just a second. I found it just very sweet and very endearing, and very heartwarming. So in terms of, we've talked a lot the last few episodes about emotional weight and what it means, and we talked a lot about how, for both you and I personally, the I Am My Monster was about Stephen admitting and talking to the people he loved and showing, how he was feeling. And we talked about how some people, there's been some criticisms of, it's all resolved in a hug, but actually we personally felt that nothing was resolved by the end of that episode. The only thing that was resolved was Stephen was honest, and Stephen opened up to people about how he felt.
Mm-hmm. He started leaning on his support system again, which is which he had not been previously doing, and was probably a little bit unhealthy.
Yeah, he was no longer running away, as he'd literally and emotionally had been running away for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally, one of my overwhelming things when watching it for the first time, all of the things I just said applied, but I just also had this voice in my head, or this kind of sinking feeling that for me, I would have liked to have seen more, or been more informed about that resolution. I think that message of talking, that message of going to a therapist, I think is really important for anyone to hear, and especially children, the notion of not bottling stuff up. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, mentioning in one line that he had a therapist, I wasn't necessarily enough for me. I maybe wanted a bigger time jump, and a specific, I've been talking every week, or, we talked last week about some references to maybe some of the subjects. I've been talking through my feelings about my mum. I've been talking through this. Just a bit more detail, a bit of a longer time jump, and then you can maybe do, you can maybe do some of the Pearl and Bism stuff we talked about, which could be as subtle as, because the kiss was so awesome because they're planning on meeting up and they had a kiss on the lips, a direct, which is a very clever reference to a previous episode, Dan. I'm a big fan. And they had a direct kiss on the lips, and that to me showed that they were together and showed they were a couple, and that was awesome. Like, I love that, and I feel if you'd have gone maybe a bit further in the future, you could have had some Pearl and Bismuth stuff around that, or you could have had some subtle indications of where everyone else is at. And I just felt and even to be honest with you, I understand the Garnet peeked into the future saw Stephen might be held back by their tears, so they decided to not give any. I understand that. Watching them in order together on my finale viewing experience, and I personally felt after an episode about being honest and open and talking, them hiding away their feelings, even though they had good intentions, when I watched all three together, jarred with me a little. And the combination of that jarring and the way I personally felt things like the therapy had been mentioned, and for fair play to them for mentioning, how many kids' action shows have a line about a child going to a therapist or a young adult going to a therapist? Like, I'm not taking away the points they get for doing what they did. They did a fantastic job. Me personally would have liked to have seen more of that, and felt that the Gems plot just jarred a little bit. So that's kind of what I've been referring to when talking about how for me the job of the last episode, the I Am My Monster did that. The job of the finale, I would have wanted a bit more of that personally.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of different points raised there, so we could sort of break some of those down, because I think you've made a lot of really interesting points, and I want to sort of make sure I tackle them all. Let's start with the therapist one, because that was an interesting thing to me, because I agree with you, and I still, even with, and I've got a quote from Rebecca Sugar in a second I'll read that explains why she chose not to maybe show him in therapy directly, but I will break that down, because she has an incredible, like I said yesterday, so this is 4D chess. We'll come back to it in a second. It's this weird meta thing she's doing. From my perspective, I agree with what you were saying, because you're essentially pointing out correctly that if the whole previous episode and the arc of this season has been about making sure that you can better yourself, and you do need to be the one taking that step, but you can't run away from your support system as well. You need a little bit of help from everywhere. These sort of things, and acknowledging you have a problem, that you're not, that you might potentially need some help, is a really big step. And the fact they gave us that one line that he's got a therapist is super useful and really does help bring that home. But it's not. It could have been done. I'm trying to think of how, though, because what Rebecca said about. Okay, I'm getting all muddled up. Let me focus on the one point I'm trying to make at the time. In terms of doing it, I agree with you. There should have been more in this episode to indicate him taking those next steps, to really seal that message. I think to really nail it right at the end, just to that last little push to sort of make sure the message is understood and clear. The problem you have is that Rebecca made a decision not to show him in therapy, which we'll come to reasons why in a second. And I think what's tricky about that is I don't know how else you do it. Because
I don't know if you link it. Sorry to interrupt, just because I've got a thought on that. I don't know if you link it to his reasons for going. Like, I can't remember what show it was, but there's some. I swear there's a TV show or a sitcom or something where it had two characters. Oh, I think it's The Office did it when Jim and Pam went through their counselling in the last series. There's an episode where for most of the episode they're saying things like, "I'm grateful to you for doing that," or they're overtly saying thank you and stuff like that. And I think if you have Stephen going, "Oh, well, in therapy we've discussed X, Y, and Z, so it's led me to the decision to see a bit of the world and decide where I want to settle down." I just think
just more references to
like
it in general.
Yeah, or just even that, because even that is more detail than it felt very quick, the reference to therapy, in Stephen's gift to Lapis. Sorry, I don't know why I said her name wrong there. Stephen's gift
for
to Lapis,
the last episode, Chris, can we not just call her by her true Stephen University name, the cute blue one?
The cute blue one. When talking to the cute blue one, I think you're going to say, was she the Green Power Ranger for a while?
She was. You called her the Green Power Ranger
Yeah.
for a while, which is amusing to everyone who had watched ahead because we knew an actual green character was showing up that also has a similar redemption arc. So
Yeah, and also,
so
like,
you were calling her the Green
out-
Power Ranger until Peridot showed up, and then it became very confusing.
outright joined the team a lot earlier as well. Peridot's way more fitting of that title.
Yeah,
Was
which is why
working
everyone
directly
was
for the
amused by the idea you were calling her the Green
Yeah.
Power Ranger gem because it made perfect sense in a world where you don't know Peridot yet. Like it fit perfectly, but everyone else who was listening knew we were well ahead of you, and it was quite an amusing thing that you had an even closer parallel who's also actually green coming up. We were like, don't waste the name, Chris. So that's, I think, when in the end we switched Lapis when Peridot showed up to cute blue one because of your obvious, infatuation.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Who's denying that? Not this guy.
No, you got a tattoo of pearl on your left arm and a tattoo of lapis on your right arm.
Yeah, maybe, but when he's talking to the beautiful blue one, he might say something like, "Oh, as we've discussed," or "I know from our conversations." He gives everyone a gift. You could tie one of those to some sort of indication that they have all been talking more and proactively discussing their feelings more. Yeah,
no, I think you're the danger of that is, that stereotype of someone who's come back from a holiday, or like, oh god, even worse, a gap year, and every sentence starts with, well, on my gap year. And you just want to punch them in the face because they won't shut up about the fact they travelled the world. I suppose there's a danger of Stephen coming across a bit smug, maybe, if he keeps going well in therapy. We've been discussing, and I know that wouldn't be the intention. Obviously, the goal of him having those sort of saying those sort of things would be to indicate and remind us that he is working on himself in different ways. And I think you're right; it would go a long way to land the message, from the previous episode. But there's a danger if you do it. There's a danger you might sort of cause more problems than you solve there, in terms of you might make Stephen come across a bit self-satisfied, like
I see what you're saying.
Come across a bit superior.
Yeah, it's all in execution, isn't it?
Of course,
100%. I see what you're saying.
So let's talk about this Rebecca quote, because this I was like, oh god, if I didn't think Rebecca was a genius prior to this. So
you didn't think Rebecca was a genius prior to this?
That's not what I said. I said if I didn't think Rebecca was a genius prior to this, I definitely would now. So this is the quote. She was asked in an interview, I think it was with...
What's a woman got to do, Dan? I mean, hundreds of episodes we've been talking about her genius. I mean...
It's true. So this is in an interview with Vulture. Now, it's worth noting that right at the minute, Rebecca seemed to be on the interview circuit, and she has been painfully honest about some of the situation. And I think we could do a whole episode in a couple of weeks' time on these interviews that she's been doing, because she's talked in detail about them essentially cancelling the show at Reunited and her having to fight for the Diamond Days arc. Like, it's fascinating. She wrote the song "I Could Never Be Ready" when she found out she wasn't getting more of the show, because she wasn't ready to say goodbye to it. Like, it's brutal. Like, we'll talk about it. We'll break it down. We'll go through some of these interviews. But there's one quote that's very relevant to this particular discussion, and it was on the Vulture interview that he did with her. And it's I'll link it below. If you're on iTunes or Google Play or any of those platforms, or for the RSS feed, go to youtube.com/nothingbutstatic, find the episode, and we'll have the link in the description. Or just Google Rebecca Sugar Vulture interview. I'm sure that will work too. Sorry, did I say Google? I meant Boogle.
No.
I meant Boogle.
Do the first bit, and then at least we get some of those sweet YouTube clicks.
Yeah. Like while you're there, and subscribe. Anyway, so this is the quote. So they asked her directly, in the last episode, Stephen mentions he has a therapist. Did you consider showing him in therapy? Very, very well aimed question. Not sort of making any sort of hesitations about what that might have, just open-ended. And this is her response. I really did not want to show that. I wanted the character to finally have privacy. As an audience watching the show and us writing it, we're complicit in Stephen feeling exposed. The idea being in that space and watching him unpack it felt like a violation of the character's privacy. I wanted you to know that he was getting that help and that he was taking steps to live the life he wanted to live, but I wanted him to be able to do it without the pressure of being the show's protagonist anymore.
Wow.
Like, so...
Wow, what a beautiful quote for how much she cares about her characters and how she views her characters. That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's an author there. That's a creator. That's something special.
Yeah, but what's genius about that is she's kind of right, because a lot of Steven's pressure has come from, you know, this expectation of him to be the hero, the savior, you know, and that's come in the context of the show from the, you know, Gem Society, sort of seeing him as Pink Diamond, Rose Quartz, whoever, you know, wanting him to, and him feeling sort of responsible for his mother's choices, and also as a diamond for Era 2 and what's been happening with Homeworld. So like all this pressure came from him. But yeah, as the show's protagonist, on a meta level, we expect him to succeed and achieve and solve these problems, right? Like that's what a TV show is. And the idea that she was like, well, he should be able to deal with this away from our prying eyes, because at this point we've put too much pressure on. We'd be pressurizing him to succeed in therapy as an audience, because if you show him in therapy, you have to show him in therapy doing well. Like the character wouldn't even have the freedom to be bad at that, because there'd be pressure on therapy almost. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. This is 4D chess. She's playing a whole different level than everyone else watching the show. That is genius on so many levels. And it makes me sort of go, oh, crap. Because, while to make the message of the previous episode land, it would have been nice to do more with even showing Steven making the phone call. Actually, that's how you do it. You know what? I take it back. I think there's a way to do it. You don't jump as far ahead as you do here. Because then you can't have him leaving.
Yeah, I think, well, maybe instead of talking to Connie about his plans, he's talking to a therapist, but then you're introducing a new character in the final episode.
Yeah, and also it's a conversation with his therapist. I was thinking more of showing the moment he chose to get a therapist. So not showing any of the therapy itself, but showing the moment he makes that choice for himself. You know, goes online, goes to Google, finds the number and calls it. Like maybe something like that might be important. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out my backside. But either way, yeah, it's a really hard one to crack, because if you're going with Rebecca's logic of why they didn't show him in therapy, which I think is brilliant, then you sort of go, oh God, I don't know.
And I suppose my argument to that would be, well, you could still have a bigger reference to it, him talking about something he's learning, etc. But then it's no longer private.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess do you think, so here's, okay, so flip the question then. So my main desire for that is because, for me, anything you can do to make that point is important. For me, the Doctor Who, the recent criticism of Doctor Who episodes for focusing too much on things like climate change and all of that stuff. Like, I think moan about the execution all they want, but never, ever, ever fucking moan about, a show trying to make that message, because I think some shit's too important not to be done. So if my main motivation for this is that, do you think actually they did enough in because my other point was, if you jump further into the future, I'd have had less of a problem with it. So if you have him visibly aged, then you potentially don't need too many references, because the notion is it's taken time, which I think is taken away slightly by it being less of a big jump. So the question is, do you think that idea of talk about it, open up about your problems, do you think I Am My Monster, Everything's Fine, do you think those two episodes did that well enough?
On their own,
well, potentially not, if there are people out there that think it got resolved with a hug.
Yeah, that is the issue, I suppose. Like, for me, it was all there, and it was enough that I didn't feel that way when I finished watching it. but you definitely could have. I think this is more a case of missed opportunity than failure. Does that make sense? So this final episode could have been used to hit that out the park to the point where no questions were raised about Steven's progress. No questions were raised about his choice and the agency he had after I Am a Monster, where he went out and got help, right? Like, had this episode hit on that a little bit harder, there's no question that I think at least a handful of the people who felt like they didn't really cover it in I'm My Monster would have felt a bit more satisfied. I think that goes without saying. But the question is, how do you do it without otherwise destroying this very sweet, surprisingly slow-paced, very peaceful last episode, which I loved. I loved that about it. I'm not going to lie. Like, one of the things that's really stuck out with me this episode was how just calm it was. How peaceful it felt. It was... Yeah, it was. There was a weight lifted watching this episode. Everyone was just. It was like, I don't know. The pressure of the show needing to achieve certain things was gone. Like, I don't know. Like, it's. Yeah, I'm a little torn on that because I wouldn't want to do anything that might affect how this episode turned out, as it is, because it is still a wonderful piece on its own in isolation. You know.
Yeah, it kind of in a way felt like classic Steven Universe, its own story. Mm-hmm. Its own, its simplicity in a way,
and again that meta nature,
which isn't a criticism,
saying goodbye to Steven and everyone saying goodbye to Steven it's I don't know.
What? So one element, because I think ultimately you hear that argument, and ultimately I land with Rebecca Sugar, and it is referenced, it is there. So I think that's kind of the therapy side of things. What are your feelings about my thoughts on how, for me, when watching all three together, the Crystal Gems plot jars slightly with I Am My Monster?
Yeah, I think that is I do think that's true. I was with you. That my least favorite element of this episode is that plot. Which is funny because that is the plot of the episode, but everything else works so well. It's like the plot is actually, in a weird way, it was just an excuse for him to wander around and give everyone gifts, right? Like, because basically, I can almost hear the conversation happening, which is like, oh, well, the last episode is just him breaking the news that he's leaving to everyone. Well, that's not a story, is it? There's no beginning, middle, and end to that. All right, we'll make it a story about, how I can see the chain of thought that led to the plot of the gems react that way. But you're right, it's very much in contrast to the message of the previous episode, I think, and that does dampen it slightly. It doesn't feel particularly right for where we've come. To me, to not have them immediately open up to Steven and say that, and again, they just about cover it, as you pointed out, with the explanation, which is Garnet's future vision. A handy thing to have for a character in a TV show, the ability to see shit, but only uses it when it's necessary for when it helps you with your storytelling. Otherwise, let's not mention it, and then the characters can be surprised by things.
That's a challenge with the idea, isn't it? That's yeah. I
but,
don't disagree with you, but it is you get that in every, why can the unfortunately with science fiction sometimes you have to let go of that stuff, don't you?
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah, I think I'm trying to think this through, like, because that one caught me off guard as a criticism, because it didn't occur to me, but I did feel that plot not working, and I couldn't work out why. But you're right, there's an insincerity to it because it doesn't really feel like that's what the characters have learned. So it feels like it goes against what the characters have already learned. So it feels like we're stepping backwards in some weird way. It's problematic. It doesn't really function as well as it could or should, I don't think. But I don't have an answer to... So I agree with you, but I don't have a solution. Because what else would you have done as the plot, as the excuse for Steven to go around and do the gifts?
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, yeah, I think you could potentially get away with him just saying goodbye and giving people gifts. Other shows have done that. But... I think it's nice enough that, especially on the rewatch, that I don't think it's I wouldn't lose it. I don't think I'd change it because of like, I suppose, that emotional outpouring at the end, which, like as you said, really struck you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. But I mean, you could have had that without the him going away and turning back. Although that is a funny moment because as soon as they were on the beach and the car was there, I was like, oh, I see where this is going. They're going to cut into the credits. Like, I already see how this is because it's dusk, it's that nighttime. I get it. I'm on board. I think it's clever. And as he starts to pull away, the song starts up, Being Human.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here we go. But they're not crying yet. And he looks a little bit like upset and they're waving and it's in the mirror. And then he like puts the brakes on and the music stops. So that's when he turns the car back around. It's so perfect because it's like I was so ready for the ending to be what they ultimately did, which is cut to the credits in the car driving. At that point, that was inevitable. But I was not predicting the slamming of the brakes, stopping the song, him turning back around. So I guess you get a.
Oh no! I thought there's no way he's not turning. He's not turning round. I foresaw him turning round. I think less so the credits thing, but yeah.
Yeah. So okay, there you go. So it goes both ways, I guess. So, but yeah, it was kind of like I did enjoy that moment and stuff. But yeah, the emotional goodbyes are certainly so powerful. And I mean, just the idea of like Stevens chose to, I suppose, really like showing. You could argue, going back to the therapy thing, Steven choosing to go off on his own is a version of like showing that he's trying to look out for himself now. Because there was another thing in one of the interviews that Rebecca said that really struck me. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, 1 second.
No worries.
I knew I wasn't going to be able to find it when I needed it. That's not going to come, is it? I'm not going to find it quickly. Nope. All right, I give up with that. There's a quote she says where basically she summarizes what the show is about, and she basically says that it's like it's about how not talking to those around you, or like not. Oh, no, I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to do it. But my point is, I suppose, with this, you've got Steven. The whole episode is Steven choosing to go off on his own and having agency and making that decision outside of everyone else, and because he's always looked after himself. Others over himself. Always, he's always chosen what others needed over him. You know, I mean, even by choosing to help Gem society be healed, he didn't need to do any of that. Yeah, we can talk about like Gem destiny and like responsibility piled onto him from his mother's actions, but in reality, he was a child. If he'd have gone, no, I'm not responsible for what's happening out in Gem society, like, good luck with that. Like, no one could blame him, right? Like, I mean, he wouldn't be Steven. I mean, that's the thing. But it's weirdly self-destructive that he spent so much of the show helping others and not himself, and you know, and arguably like damaging himself for the benefit of everyone else. You know, very rarely does he put himself first. So I guess you could argue that just the notion that he's leaving does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the therapy thing.
Yeah,
because you could argue, he got that from therapy.
I completely agree, and if, like I say, if the show was for adults, if the show was for us, if the show didn't have, and again, I can't stress enough, it's not in any way a deal breaker, but you know, when you think about what Mindful Education as an episode did, when you think about the way that some of the themes that are, you know, when you think about what Reunited did, I think did they, in my opinion, hammer it home enough for children? Because, like you say, yeah, you can read into symbolism, and you can read into a lot of it, you know, I guess. But did I potentially unfairly want it to be more obvious to get that message across? A message that I think is so important. You know, that's why I kept, when talking about it, using the word personally, because I think it is personal. It fully depends on where you stand on how obvious that message was, and how obvious it is to all the audiences. And I think, virtue of some of the criticism we discussed last week or last time, I'm not sure it was obvious, which is, fair enough. Yeah. It's really difficult. And it's difficult as well because it's, but by discussing it episode by episode, that this notion goes into all the other episodes, and that makes it seem like a much harsher criticism than it is in reality.
Yeah, no, that's agreed.
One question I have for you, because I was, speaking of harsher criticisms, I was not torn on it, because I don't know what you could do with it instead, but how did you feel about Jasper's goodbye?
Yeah, okay. I thought we were going to have to hit on the Jasper thing eventually. Not ideal. It didn't really do anything, did it? It's probably the one scene you could probably cut from this, and you wouldn't notice the difference. I
feel like the show was just okay with and again, all we've been through with Steven, Jasper doesn't get a resolution. Jasper's like, everyone else is upset, but upset in a sweet way. Jasper's just a bit lost still, which I think is a shame.
Yeah.
I'd love to get Rebecca Sugar's opinion on the Jasper of it all.
I mean, but the thing is, it's frustrating from us. This is the one downside to that. So Rebecca Sugar has this whole this idea of the sublime, right? So you're only in a piece of art ever seeing what the artist wants you to see, but outside of the window you're looking into, it exists, it expands, it continues, right? That's this notion. So, yes, we don't visit Homeworld, for example, in this last episode. But Homeworld's out there and living on and evolving, and those characters are growing. And that's always been Rebecca's approach to storytelling in general. And I think that's what's led to Steven Universe. One of the reasons Steven Universe is so powerful is, like, in those early seasons, we were only getting this sliver of the wider world through Steven, this child's eyes, and as he learned more, we learned more, right? So you're seeing the rest of the world expand around him, and that's a really satisfying experience. But the problem, I suppose, with that is, when the piece of art ends, when your window closes, there's no way you can have witnessed all the things, because the stuff that exists outside of the window you were viewing the show through is so expansive that you're never gonna. I guess the premise there is, well, Jasper still has work to do too. You're not gonna see it, but there you go, and that's fine, I think, in the midst of a show. But when you get to the end of a show like this, things like that and the other dangling plot threads can feel a little frustrating. So things like the chest, things like that genocidal lapis that's still out there, things like Jasper, things like Nephrite, things like Steven, like what after he goes on his journey, what does he decide to do with his life? He talked about settling down somewhere. Where? What does that look like? All right, the characters are getting some privacy for a bit now. I understand that, and certainly Rebecca's. But this is the downside of that whole storytelling style, which is that you're going to get situations where there are going to be characters that are going to feel unresolved. But that's because, realistically speaking, imagine if everyone's story arcs ended in the same moment. You'd be like, in real life, that wouldn't make any sense. And it also doesn't fit with Rebecca's ethos either, of like, you're always growing, you're never solved, you're never fixed, it's never over. Like that thing from the movie of, happily ever after is a nice idea, but it's not very realistic, because in reality, you're always going to have something to improve about yourself, right? You're never going to be done getting better. And I guess maybe the point that they're making with Jasper is, some people their problems aren't over yet. They're going to carry on living in this world and growing and it's organic that way. Because if Jasper came to some sort of character arc sort of conclusion at the same time as Steven and everyone else, it would feel a bit off. Like, I suppose it would feel a bit like, oh, what a coincidence. Everyone's character arcs and personal problems all resolved around this point, right? Cool. So I guess it's the honest answer to Rebecca's whole approach to storytelling, for better or worse. And in the case of Jasper, and the case of the chest, and the case of Nephrite, a little bit for worse, in my opinion, because I would have really enjoyed seeing Stephen spend some time with Nephrite once Nephrite was, fully formed, or even a glimpse of Nephrite. Nephrite literally never. Our Nephrite is in the one Stephen grew up with, Monster Buddies and all that. I don't believe ever showed up in Steven Universe Future ever. The chest, obviously, we're never going to find out what was in that chest. And I guess it is just that idea of you've got this sliver of window into it, and there's just some stuff you're not going to see. And while that works when the show is running, when you get to the end, I guess that can always leave you with some stuff that's going to feel a little bit unsatisfying. I'm not sure that excuses it, but I think that explains it.
No, well, we're so accustomed to TV doing that, aren't we? We're so accustomed to TV wrapping everything up at the same time because that's TV, and I think Rebecca's idea of there being a world outside, as you said, has led to some of the most incredible art. So I'm not, I guess this is the thing you take as what we've been rewarded with is this incredible storytelling, and the other side of that is the Jasper of it all and the chest and stuff. I think the chest feels like, because with Jasper you kind of go, well, we've had her story, we've seen where she's ended up. We know she's not a danger to anyone. She's not happy. She's not happy about the Steven situation.
She does appear to be living in Homeworld now, Little Homeworld now, which is
so
interesting.
There's some indications. She's maybe in.
Sorry to interrupt, but can I just say sorry, Cram, because we just did that thing where we said something. Cram, who writes his notes alongside while we're talking, is writing. I can't believe I'm surprised you guys didn't mention that Jasper being at Homeworld is a sort of event for her character because she'd previously been isolated, and he'll write that, and then the next line will be like, "Oh, you came to that conclusion yourselves in the end. Okay, cool. Thumbs up. Sorry, Cram. Carry on.
Apologies, Cram.
It's the last main review episode of this show. I got to reference Cram somehow, and that's and that
we've got to give a Cram shout out.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
So I think and Cram, at least the Cram we're assuming that has written that is I assume you have written that or thought it, Cram. You're a very clever boy.
The use of the word boy there just made that suddenly go from being quite sincere to very, very patronising. You're a very clever boy.
Cram is male as well. I'm suddenly overthinking now.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought I knew that and was right with that. But anyway, I don't mean sound patronising at all. I love you, Cram. You know that. So he's right. Jasper gets an ending, and it is in that of a sort, and it is wonderful. The chess thing is difficult because you just kind of go, at some point you must have. You don't put a locked chest there without thinking what's in it, and at some point maybe be planning, because otherwise it just seems cruel to the audience,
Yeah. Some have speculated it was his jacket, the pink jacket.
What, Greg's?
Steven's pink jacket.
Oh, right.
Because he obviously he got that jacket in the movie. The movie was the first time we saw that the chest was open. People drew a line.
Oh yeah, I forgot that the chest was then open. Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, the chest was opened in the movie, but we didn't see what was in it. So and we've seen it since then as well, and it was open. So the chest got opened sometime between Steven Universe, the main show, and Steven Universe Future.
Right. I mean,
but again,
that a little more if maybe we'd have seen
Greg.
If we'd have seen Greg wear that jacket in the past, and then the notion is Rose took Greg's jacket and then Steven started wearing it, but...
Oh yeah, the jacket thing's a bit of a stretch. I don't know if I buy it. I've seen that mentioned at least a couple of times, so I just thought I'd bring it up. But yeah, but I guess that all fits back in with Rebecca's idea of the sublime. The world lives on, even when we're not witnessing it. Whatever was in that chest, he figured out how to open it in the end.
I found that in that because I read some of that Vulture issue, and we'll maybe save this discussion at length for a future episode. But I found this notion of Cartoon Network wanting the movie and wanting some episodes to go along with it interesting. And I found the notion of at one point the movie might have been the ending interesting. Because I think it does play like that. It does work.
Yeah, well, she talks about it.
You'd still get us grumbling about the loose threads, but people are grumbling now about loose threads.
Including us.
That's what we're discussing.
I mean, what's interesting about that is, and maybe we'll do a full episode on those interviews and some of the things she said. But like, it's so ironic. They're like, okay, so your show's basically cancelled. We're not ordering any more episodes. She's like, oh, but I need at least a couple to wrap this up because at the moment this is all very open. They're like, and she's like, no, I really do need some more. And they go, oh, fine. Also, we're commissioning a movie. But the funny thing about this movie thing is, I mean, what's the point in doing a movie if we're not going to use it to sort of set up some more episodes for it to promote? We'll have 20 more episodes on top of that. And she's there with the 5 they just gave her to wrap up the show going, really? Now you give me more episodes? Really? Could I have not used those 20 episodes to sort of here where I needed it? So I don't know if the whole thing feels very kind of like unfortunate the way it worked out.
Do you feel like, and this is potentially a crap analogy, and I don't know the other.
Hey! I'll be making the crap analogies around here.
well, and this might be that's
my job, Chris.
I don't know the other animation I'm about to talk about, so this might be bad. This might be a really crap analogy.
Go on.
But is it a bit like, how there was The Office?
Yep.
Huge success, and then there was Parks, which was fighting for its own survival every year,
yep.
And has since it ended been renowned as a classic, helped by the fact that pretty much every one of its cast went on to become a huge star.
Sure.
Do you think Adventure Time is The Office and Steven Universe is Parks and Rec?
Yeah, in many ways I think there's a certain truth to that. I mean, certainly a lot of the people who went on to work on Steven Universe started working with Pendleton Ward on Adventure Time, and without Adventure Time, the same way that Greg Daniels, and then the guy that
Mike Schur.
What's his name? Sorry.
Mike Schur.
So Mike Schur worked with Greg Daniels on The Office and then went off to create his own thing with what he learned from his time on The Office. And it's kind of that, because Rebecca started as a boarder, I think, of some sort of... I think she must have been a storyboard artist. I can't remember exactly what her role was, but she was on Adventure Time. She wrote songs for Adventure Time and created, as far as I'm aware, she's kind of... She literally created the Marceline character, which is why when they gave Marceline her backstory, they got Rebecca Sugar in to voice Marceline's mother, which I thought was just so...
that's nice.
It was really sweet. So that is a fair comparison, because a lot of the people who created worked on Adventure Time went on to create shows, or at least a handful of them did, and that certainly happened with The Office too. And Adventure Time was a really huge hit. I guess then you sort of look at Steven Universe sort of retrospectively, and you go, well, okay, it fought for its life a surprising amount of its run, but it always got by because of like merch sales or whatever. I mean, it wasn't. I would never describe it as like a complete failure. It always made Cartoon Network.
Oh no, neither. But
it made Cartoon Network a decent amount of money. But yeah, it definitely lived on the bubble for a long part of its existence, from what I can tell. So yeah, that is probably a fair comparison.
The strength, and you can compare. This is gonna be so much worse. Potentially, what an incredibly. I'm just potentially going to sound like a right cock here, but you could compare Steven Universe and Steven University, this podcast, because I think the best thing to come from Steven University is the Discord, the community of people that watch it, that listen. Engaging with each other, engaging with us. I say us, mainly you. I still need to get Discord on my new phone. But when I think about this podcast, one thing that within my first in the future.
Here we are in the future. I got to do
Thank you.
I got to do it.
Thank you. Exactly. A little last episode treat for you. When I think about it, one of the first few things to come to my mind will be how incredibly warm and lovely everyone was when Jess and I had to postpone the wedding. You know, it's I think with Steven Universe, it's the fans and the way the fans fucking love that show that is so important and so amazing. And yeah, I just think there's a reason that people that are fans of the show have gravitated and behaved with the utmost respect and kindness for each other when it comes to this podcast. And I think it's because the show encourages that sort of behavior, and therefore the show attracts just amazing people. And I think it's Steven Universe's legacy is the community it's built, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's. I mean, all I would be able to say here is something way less eloquent that basically repeats what you said, but 100% agreed.
I mean, you've been doing that for 150 odd episodes, so
yeah, why stop now, right?
Is there anything? What else do you notice about this ep, Dan?
So there's a bunch of stuff. So we'll go through this and sort of this will lead us to some conversation points, I think, because some of this stuff is discussion worthy. I feel. So obviously,
definitely. Yeah, we sort of only really discussed the therapy thing, Jasper, and the crystal gems thing. So yeah,
absolutely. There's a handful of things we can talk about here. There's a lot of references, obviously, to the old show. So let's go through it. So first of all, we literally open with the Korean exercise tape thing, which he's used before. The boombox, which is from Coach Steven, and I believe those little weights he's using are also from Coach Steven, if I'm not mistaken. Connie shows up obviously online and immediately smashes that stereo. So I hope she was prepared to replace that, because seriously, guys, little public service announcement: be careful when parking your Lion. You can't park them on top of someone else's property like that. That's terrible. Lion jumps out of the portal, he lands straight on Steven's stereo. Brutal.
You see that kiss she smacked on his lips a bit later on? I think he's letting her break all the stereos she wants.
Wow. Moving on. We'll come back to the kiss. The kiss is on the list. So I think it's really nice that when they talk about Steven's trips, going around visiting the rest of the country, they very specifically mention he's going to make time to see Sadie and Shep at a concert. He's going to see Lars. He's going to make some time to travel to space and see Lars through Line, presumably. And he's going to meet up with Connie a couple of times, presumably again. Lion is a portable teleporter, essentially. He'll come to you and teleport you to wherever. So I think that's pretty good. I think that's a really nice notion that he's incorporating into his plans, seeing all the other guys. It sort of gives us that sense of, okay, he's leaving, but he's not leaving. You know what I mean? He's moving out, but moving out doesn't mean, when you move out from your parents, it's not the last time you see your parents. Do you know what I mean? You don't move out and go, all right, bye, suckers. And it's just nice that this episode sort of, it manages to give you the impression he's back every couple of months to see the gems or whatever, but at the same time, give the proper weight to his leaving. And it's little things like that help sell that, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So he mentions it's been a few months since his meltdown. Yeah, so I mean, that timeline is pretty clear, a couple of months. Do you think that, would you, because you talked a lot in the build-up to this about you'd love to go quite far ahead. Do you stand by that, having seen this episode, or do you think that maybe you'd have done something closer to this, or...
No, I kind of stand by that for the reasons I was talking about earlier, partly connected to the therapy and stuff. I think a longer time jump would make you feel the weight of just how long it's actually taken for him to reach this point. And I think, visually, there's something quite nice about, and he starts as a boy, he ends as a man. I think that's a nice bookend as well for the show. I mean, admittedly, then you've got fuck it, you can have a 22-year-old or whatever singing about cookie cats. Absolutely, you can. Fucking, you seen me with a teddy bear?
I mean, the gems are literally thousands of years old and rapping about it. So,
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think I probably still would have liked to have gone that little bit further into the future, but it's fine. It works definitely. It's not a deal breaker.
Cool. So on the subject of the cookie cats, I mean, well, first of all, Pearl being one of the first ones, I mean, I've got, right, putting this out there right now, MK Atwood must have been absolutely in tears and screaming and yelling when this happened. So for those who don't know, we talked about this in the we did an episode about Steven Universe, like other fan content, and MK Atwood, who's I guess I don't know what you would call it. She's a YouTuber, but she's also like an animator. She also is the host of, she was an intern at Cartoon Network, and she was the host of the official Steven Universe podcast before sadly her internship ended and the podcast vanished with it, which is a shame because we could have really used it for Steven Universe Future. She created the Pearl Secret Rap career videos, where she took the old clip of Dee Dee Magno-Hall, whose voice is Pearl, sort of rapping with her old pop band, and stuck it to footage of Steven Universe to make it look like Pearl had secretly hidden a rap career away. Having Pearl burst out in the Cookie Cat rap, just not only being the Cookie Cat rap being this incredible reference to season 1, bookending the show and all that, but just specifically having Pearl start it, incredible. The gag where it cuts to Garnet, and like all the others had like that colourful background behind them, but it cuts to Garnet, it's just her in the kitchen saying her line really monotone. Fuck, just yes, everything about that is brilliant. And I'm so thrilled.
Yeah, it was great.
And I'm so thrilled for MK Atwood, because that feels very much like Mackenzie got like that felt like a special shout out to her. I mean, I think they'd have done it anyway, but the way they approached it with Pearl starting, for me, that whoa going into it, I think they chose to do that for her, and I think that's really sweet.
Yeah, that's a nice idea and a nice notion. I hope that is the case.
Yeah, I would love for that to be true. I like that he had to make the Cookie Cats himself, because I think otherwise we'd have had serious questions. Like, how long does ice cream keep?
Yeah, and I wouldn't have bought that Stephen would have found one and not eaten it. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it was better that he'd made them, I think. I like that they were all...
Surprised you're not questioning whether they're vegan, Dan. Oh, fucking vegan patrol on Stephen Doolan.
So it's been clarified in the comments many times, thank you everyone, that he's a vegetarian, not a vegan. I just couldn't quite remember which word he used in the original episode, but my flitting between the two in the episode where we discussed that definitely irked some people, so I'm sorry.
Oh, really? Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
I am now very aware that he was vegetarian, and evidently that vegetarianism dropped at a certain point, because as we said, we saw him eating a burger and we also saw him eating fish. Maybe the burger was veggie and the fish
could be plant-based.
The burger could have been veggie, and maybe he's just a pescatarian now. Who knows? But either way, the Cookie Cats, I mean, he either made them vegan or vegetarian, or
to show that you know him.
I stepped into such a bloody... That was just such a wormhole of shite, that was. I just wish I'd never mentioned it. Both I got so much shit from you in that podcast, and then to see all the people tell it, I was just like, I wish I'd never brought it up. And then, of course, you had to bring it up now, because you're a bad person.
I'm a bad person. You're the one who hates vegans. Fucking hell.
No problem with vegans. So he made the Cookie Cats himself. They look all smushy, which I think is cute. They look kind of wrong and broken, sort of like they're all misshapen. I kind of love that about them. They're kind of weirdly adorable. He refers to all 39 states. Now, I don't know if the show has done this before, but confirming exactly how many states are in this sort of otherworld alternate reality version of America was really interesting.
Yeah, I caught that as well. But then again, they've done so much with like playing with Delaware and New York and all of that sort of stuff. Like it, yeah. I think it was almost maybe like, oh, here's one for the people keeping track of this stuff for clarification. In this version, there are.
Yeah, and I guess making Florida Island. Apparently that. Oh, someone mentioned actually that's a pretty cool thing. Apparently, if you go back to all the episodes where they did show a map, there was a chunk of land where Florida would be that was separated from the main. So like they've kept that consistent.
Oh wow, that's very consistent.
Yeah, pretty incredible. I'll be honest with you. So Florida is just an island in the world of Steven Universe. Who knew? And I assume you mean Delmarva, not Delaware.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because I'm going to say that now to save you the comments, or to save me the comments because I'm the one who reads them.
Exactly what I thought when you made that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then he goes to he sees the crystal temps, and I love this scene. But first of all, this is the first time it's really off-puttingly not Uzo Aduba, voice-wise for Bismuth. It's
yeah.
It's so clear it's not her in this. and it's kind of upsetting. I don't like it.
Yeah. It was a shame that they couldn't get her back. We talked about it on the last episode.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of because we talked a lot last episode about whether that meant they couldn't do Pearl and Bismuth stuff, and especially rewatching it after that chat, I'm like, no, they gave the other voice actor enough lines to I don't think I think they didn't try and lessen Bismuth's part in this. I think they just gave the lines to the other actress who does a great job. I have to say, I noticed it knowing it. I didn't notice it not knowing it. So
yeah. She's as close as you're gonna get without the actual original actress back. But that hurt me a little bit. It's just a real shame, in my opinion. But I guess I don't know if it was budgetary or scheduling or what, but it doesn't stop it from being a shame. So the gifts he gives to the Crystal Tempest, which is just some of my favorite. So Peridot, how cute does she look in that damn shirt?
Yeah, very cute, very cute. It was a nice moment.
And apparently that's a reference to an earlier episode where she referenced stealing Steven's clothes. Like when he sleeps or something like that. There was an earlier episode. I saw somebody mention it on Reddit. I haven't actually dug into it, but I'm sure people can mention below. I'd be curious to know the exact existence of where that quote is from and what the quote was. But apparently there'd been a reference in the past to that. I love that he gives Lapis watercolors. And then she says, I can use my tears to paint you with watercolors when she's sad later. It's just great. I thought that was very sweet. Yeah, and then of course the probably one of the most interesting gifts and certainly one of the most symbolic is the flag, the Rose's flag, the one that I assume it's the one that was up in Lion, inside Lion's Mane, the one that was hung up there over the tree, I think, maybe, or was it on no, it was on a pole. It was on a little pole sticking out of the little mound. So I think that specifically was Rose's flag. I just think that's a really sweet and meaningful gift.
I completely agree.
And when we watched it originally, Nadia turned to me and said, "You own that?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." Because I do. I own a version of that flag.
I think the dialogue was absolutely spot on. Bismuth is truly a crystal gem, and kind of to get the original flag as well. There's kind of almost, in the way there's multiple eras of diamonds, there's multiple eras of crystal gems, and Bismuth is really the warrior that harkens back to that first era of crystal gems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally fitting that she got that. We've already talked about Jasper, so there's not much really to say on the Jasper of it all. Although I do who will protect you? I can protect myself. I know. That's very sweet. Yeah. Let's see. The old video game systems for Amethyst. I thought was really neat about this. In the background all season, Steven's GameCube has been on one of the shelves. And when he gave Amethyst the box of his old video games, if you looked in the background, you could see a sort of blank space on the shelf where the GameCube used to be.
Oh, that's quite cool.
I just like that they thought that through. They were like, oh yeah, if he's giving her the video game systems, we can't have the one on the shelf in the background because it's, supposed to be in the box.
A great tick for continuity there.
Yeah, good look out, whoever spotted that and edited that and made that function. The original ukulele for Pearl, I thought that was very sweet considering she sort of turned to music in her later life, and it was just sweet. I think it was so nice for us to see that again as an audience. I think that's such an iconic piece. What Steven Universe cosplayer doesn't have a Steven uke with that specific design on it? It's so iconically part of the original sort of Steven look that it was really nice to see it again. That and the red shirt.
Yeah, I agree. I hadn't, because we haven't really seen it all season. I hadn't sort of noticed that or realised that, but yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's nice that we got him back. We got to see the red shirt again. And look how small it is. It fits Peridot perfectly now. And it would never have fit Steven. It's really nicely done. The other thing I want to point out, Garnet. Well, bust my britches, it's Steven Universe. What? It was that as a sentence. It was one of my favourite lines from the whole episode. I laughed so much. I don't know what she was getting at there.
No, it was great though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's wonderful. So the gift he gives to Garnet is that she can plan his wedding, which I thought was a very nice Winky wink, and the book that he gives her to fill out, like the stuff is designed the same as the one he used to design Ruby and Sapphire's wedding. So that was a nice little nudge. But the real thing I took from this scene, Chris, and again, credit to Cram for pointing this one out. There's a little note on the back of the washing machine, and it's got Peridot's little head on it with a cross through it, and the text says, "Peridot, please stop stealing parts from the washer and dryer. We're running out of replacements."
That's brilliant.
Cool. It's amazing.
Cool.
All I've got to wonder is, so I presume when you start a season like this, there's background artists, right? Their job is to design these backgrounds the characters live in. That's probably been drawn on that, or part of the design of that washing machine for a while. Maybe we just didn't get a clear shot of it. I don't know. But yeah, that's brilliant.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, loved it so much. So then Stephen, we see Stephen packing his suitcase. We get a glimpse of a bunch of stuff. Do you want to know what some of the stuff in the suitcase was?
Would love to.
So the speculation, a lot of this stuff is gifts from other people in Beach City, which is possible. The first thing you notice is a t-shirt from, well, not the first thing you notice necessarily, but the first thing I spotted is a t-shirt from Fish Stew Pizza. Then we have a bat, a toy, it looks like a rubber bat from the Horror Club episode. Which did he get that from? So the Fish Stew Pizza thing, you could imagine him getting from either Kiki or Jenny, or maybe even, the any other member of the Fish Stew family, including Nana Foire or the dad. Maybe. But like the bat from Horror Club, has he just kept that, or did Sadie give it him? Did Ronaldo give it him? Unclear. The most probably significant one is Ranger Guy, the toy that he gave to Onion. In that episode.
Oh.
So Onion...
Do you think maybe Onion gave it back? Or?
Yeah, I think that's maybe what they're implying there. Because that Ranger Guy had a special place in Stephen's heart, and in the end, when he saw how much Onion wanted it, he gave it to Onion, didn't he? It was a very sweet moment, and Onion gave him something in return, which I think has been in the background of his room the whole season. I forget what it was. It's another small figure. It wouldn't be one of the Gal figures or something. I can't remember. But... yeah, the Ranger Guy is in his case, so a little keepsake from Onion, maybe. The Keep Beach City Weird book idea. From Ronaldo. So amazing. Ronaldo wrote a book, and it's in his bag. He's packed it. Maybe he got given it as a gift from Ronaldo. Buck Dewey's campaign T-shirt. Presumably he got that as a gift from Buck, or he just kept it as a keepsake. There's a thing in there that some people think is just a mirror, and Stephen's face in it is reflected because Stephen's closing the case at the time. I think it could be a painting of himself from Vidalia.
Mm-hmm.
Either is possible. Nice. Either is possible. And then the most perplexing, no one understands what this is there for, but there is a ship in a bottle. And no one has been able to adequately explain what that's about. My theory was that it was a model of the ship that the guy who found Beach City, the Buck Dewey's ancestor, rode in, and he got it from Jamie, who did the play about that. But that was...
maybe. That would make sense. But yeah, who knows? But I like that theory, though. I like, bringing Jamie in, and yeah.
The final gift he gives is for Greg. And he gives Greg the gift of a place to sleep that isn't his van. How did you feel about that?
It's the spin-off we all want to see. Just Greg getting through day-to-day life, living with the gems.
Like a sitcom style, hijinks ensue sort of thing.
I think Stephen did it more so his dad could feel close to him and feel a bit settled and have the gems, because at least we forget Greg can afford to buy his own place. Isn't he worth like millions of pounds?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, you're right. Actually, that's a really good point.
But I loved that. I thought it was very sweet. I thought it was a very good scene, and I thought we needed... I'm glad that we got a dedicated Greg scene, given the place that we sort of saw them in Mr. Universe, and given that last bit is really about him and the crystal gems. I like that we got some Greg stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they would. Yeah, it's if he's going around and saying goodbye to everyone, that's the order in which it happens, isn't it? And should happen, which is the crystal gems, Greg, the crystal gems. I mean, they did nail that part of it for sure. And
were you happy?
It's a really sweet moment with Greg, actually, because I liked that. I guess you could. This could be another. Again, you could argue this is another element of showing that he's maybe improving through therapy. There's this moment where he says, "I guess I wanted them to be a little upset," and he responds, "Is that petty?" He asks that question. He's thinking about things from that perspective, and then Greg responds, "You're allowed to have feelings, even petty ones," which is one nice lesson for kids. That you got to allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. You can't deny your own feelings. That's bottling things up, and that leads to pain and problems in itself. So there's that, which is potentially very sweet. And then there's obviously the element of maybe that is something he learned in therapy. Like look at him opening up to Greg. Like he's having a bad thought, and instead of hiding it or burying it or pretending it doesn't exist, he just says to Greg, "Is that petty?" And that could be, you could see that way as well.
I agree with that completely. I just thought of this. I love that notion. And I assume you were about to get to it or name them. With the townsfolk there waving Stephen off, were you happy with the townsfolk we got? Or does part of you wish we got everyone? But I kind of feel like we got everyone that was still in the town. You know, if you couldn't really have Lars, you couldn't have Sadie. No. You couldn't have Buck and that gang because they've all already moved on. So I think we probably got the right townspeople because we got the mayor, didn't we? And we got a few other key figures. Well, I'm sure you're about to name them.
I am. Because what's interesting about it is with a couple of them, there's sort of stand-ins, which is interesting. So we don't get Sadie because you can't have Sadie, but Sadie's mum is there, Barb. And you don't get Lars because Lars is obviously out and about. But we do have the gem that took over his store.
Yeah. Which
is, I think, a ocean blue jasper? God, that's I'm gonna Google that quickly. Because I think that's who that is. But yes, I think that's who that is. I could be wrong. Oh God, I'm getting ocean jasper? Maybe just ocean jasper? Oh, I don't know.
Is she vegetarian or vegan?
Vegan. Yeah, that could be who that is, but it might not be. I don't know. I'm looking it up now. I'm trying to anyway. I can't find out. The answers aren't there. All right, I give up on that one. So yeah, so that we've got stand-ins for some of the characters as well. I was getting at because, like I said, we got Barb there instead of Sadie, and we got that. But but you're right. There's definitely a couple people it's a shame we couldn't see. I don't see any reason Buck couldn't have been there because we saw Buck last week hanging out in Beach City, and we saw Sour Cream last week hanging out in Beach City. Sour Cream's around, actually.
Yeah, we haven't got Mr. Smiley's not there, is he?
Mr. Smiley is there, yeah. Mr. Smiley is there. Yeah, but more importantly, who's next to Mr. Smiley was really nice, Mr. Frowny.
Yeah, I noticed that and thought that was awesome.
Yeah, so like that's like the idea that he came back and they're friends again and talking again. I mean, whether they're together again or not is a different issue, but they're certainly there. And what's weird is Mayor Dewey is in this shot, but Buck isn't. And we have Kiki, but not Jenny.
Nana
Fuara is there. Nana Fuara is there, yeah. And we do, and Lil Larimar is there.
But you said Mayor Dewey, but he's not Mayor anymore, is he? Nana?
No, he's stood in front of the donut shop. He's in the last episode we saw him with his donut shop shirt on. He works at the donut shop still.
Yeah.
And Nana Fuara is in front of him with her 2 ruby guards.
Yeah, I still love those ruby guards.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then, I mean, even the joy. Ronaldo is with his girlfriend from that episode when you thought she was Jane. Cool. Jane, her name was Jane. So do you remember when everyone thought she was fake? And then she shows up and she's upset at him and storms off, and you feel like everyone assuming she was fake has led to them sort of like accidentally breaking up.
Yeah, well, such a dark plot.
Yeah,
I didn't clock him. That's awesome. I'm glad they're together.
Yeah, so Ronaldo and Jane present and accounted for. She's wearing a slightly different coloured shirt from last time we saw her, but I guess she's changed clothes. Everyone else is wearing the exact same thing they normally wear, but she's wearing a different shirt.
But it is very clearly road. I thought Onion running out into the road was very sweet.
Well, did you notice what Onion was wearing?
No.
he has presumably a gift from Steven in return for the guy figure. Onion is wearing the cheeseburger backpack.
Oh, that's cool. That's sweet.
So Onion got the cheeseburger backpack in the end, which I thought was very sweet.
Assuming it's a gift, he probably nicked it.
Yeah, little weirdo.
Yeah, I don't think he would have done. So I suspect it's a gift from Stephen.
But yeah, you're right.
The attention to detail. The attention to detail in this is crazy.
Yeah, but you have raised an interesting question, because some of the cool kids could definitely be present here. Sadie can't, we know that. Lars can't, we know that. I get that, no problem. But you're right, where we know Buck and Sour Cream are around. We saw Sour Cream, 7 episodes ago, working at the roller rink. We also saw him 2 episodes ago. No, even we saw him last episode, listening to music with his dad, who is here. And then obviously we have in Yellowtail, and then we have Mayor Dewey here, who again was seen last episode with Buck. So those two are definitely in town.
Yeah, but 6 months or whatever has
2 or
passed.
3
They
months
might
have
have
passed. I guess, I don't know. That felt maybe
Sour
that's what they were
got a
maybe that's
DJ
what they were
gig.
trying to say. Maybe that's what they were trying to sort of point
Yeah, I
out.
quite like the notion of most of the young'uns not that there's anything wrong with them still being there. Like, Ronaldo's obviously quite young, but I just I don't know. I quite like the idea that as Steven flies the nest, so have the others. But also honestly, Sour Cream's got a good DJ gig somewhere. He's
right.
DJ.
You win.
Yeah, that's my theory.
No.
Flag.
We did potentially get in the next shot where he moves through the town some interesting stuff. The thing that stuck out to me, there's a ruby hanging out with a jade, which I thought was cute. But more importantly, Chris, and this is the thing that's a lot of people have been talking about, pumpkin, we think, or at least a relative of pumpkins, with a baby pumpkin and then a different kind of pumpkin.
Wow, I didn't notice that. That's cool.
Yeah, just running through the front of the screen. So there's a slightly graying pumpkin that a lot of people think is our pumpkin aged. But if you do the math on how long an actual pumpkin lasts, seems unlikely. But the idea that there are just lots of pumpkin pets running around the town now, at some point that pumpkin procreated and now there's their little, oh, what are you going to get? A cat, a dog, or a pumpkin?
Bow, chicka, wow, wow.
But yeah, the idea that
juice.
if you live in Beach City, there are the three main options for what you get as a pet: cat, dog, pumpkin.
Sorry, I'm busy not forgiving myself for pumpkin juice. I just want to apologise to everyone.
Yeah, no, I was choosing to ignore. So, we also have what are they called? Sorry, Chert and Flint are clearly visiting from Little Homeworld, from actual Homeworld, sorry, and they're having their picture taken by Pink Pearl, which I thought was nice. Well, I keep calling her Pink Pearl. She's called Volleyball. And also, I feel really stupid. I remember a couple episodes ago we were talking about her, and I kept going, oh, whatever her episode was called. Her episode was called Volleyball, very iconically called Volleyball, because we all laughed. What would that be about? And it was about her, and she got the nickname Volleyball in it. I don't know why I keep calling her Pink Pearl, other than that I forgot the name Volleyball for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself when I say I forgot.
Right, yeah, fair enough. We both forgot. Cool. So yeah, Pumpkin of a sort lives. Either relatives of Pumpkin or Pumpkin. I'm leaning towards relatives just because it seems unlikely that Pumpkin would have survived, but there you go. So the final thing, I saved this for last, Chris. Let's talk about the kiss.
Oh, bow chicka bow wow.
Oh God. Why did that become the running joke in the last episode?
I don't know. I love the kiss. I've mentioned the kiss. I just think it was a wonderfully subtle confirmation. I think that I've got pals and that I don't kiss like that when saying goodbye or whatever. So I think it was a very subtle. They're together. I love that.
Yeah, I thought it was. Like we didn't already we already knew, but we didn't know. We'd never gotten to see them kiss directly, as you pointed out, until now. And I think that was just a really nice confirmation moment. It was exactly what we needed because no one else got a smooch from Steven. That was reserved for Connie. So
no, and I feel like I just feel like it was really subtle. They didn't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
They made, arguably a bigger deal in the kiss last week, and I think there's, whether that was their first kiss or not, I think there's poetry if it was in Sadie choosing to make the first kiss while he was in that form. I think says a lot about their relationship and
You just
love
said Sadie. I assume you meant Connie.
Sorry, Connie giving Stephen a kiss in that form. I think it says a lot about love. I think it says a lot about her feelings towards him. And I think this was just a nice... I'm glad I think it would have been a bit too up in the air if they didn't do the kiss. We'd be sat here now going, well, they're meeting up, but that could just be... They could be friends, whereas the kiss is like, no, they're together. And I'm glad that we got that.
Agreed. So there you go. That's all the things that were noticed.
Yeah.
I
was just going to say, I will say, I've nearly stopped myself, but I will say, I imagine, because I know some people didn't ship Connie and Stephen, so I imagine there are some portions of fans that didn't like that, but I personally did.
Yeah, I did too. I think they belong together. That's the way it should be. They're yeah. That's
because also
that's
I don't know who else would be for either of them if not each other.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have said that with Sadie and Lars, and Sadie got Shep, so...
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I suppose if it's
it's hard when you're within a relationship to imagine the possibility of another human being, but then you might meet, people who are in relationships that end and are sad about it, then end up meeting other people who they, but you wouldn't have thought about those people when you were in that relationship. You think of them afterwards. So it's like, so you wouldn't. I guess Stephen wouldn't know unless he and Connie broke up. Who would be next?
Yeah,
but presumably him and Connie are staying together. I think that's sweet.
I do too. Have we got any triv, Daniel?
There's a little bit. Let me just bring it up. First time we've ever seen Pearl eating.
Very gingerly with the cookie cat. That made me laugh.
Yes, me too. Obviously, the first time we're seeing Connie and Stephen kissing properly on the lips, because for those of you who are going, but they kissed in the movie. Well,
wow, chick,
little kiss on the cheek, not the same. Little cheek peck.
The cheek peck was bow chicka. This is bow chicka wow wow.
Jesus, I wish this joke would end so badly. For those of you who are going, that's weird. Dan normally jumps on when Chris does a joke, and they riff, they go back and forth. This feels very one way. Yeah, it does. You're right. I refuse to engage with it.
I'm all right with that.
Cool. It's a private. The bow chicka wowing is your private thing for you. Cool.
In this instance, I don't need you joining in to increase my enjoyment. I'm at maximum enjoyment from this.
Oh Jesus, that makes it so much worse. Oh right.
From the joke, nothing weird about the kiss from the joke.
Yeah. Anyway, when planning the itineraries, obviously Connie mentions Google Maps, which is a spoof of Google Maps. Amethyst obviously references what saving N64 games is like, and she even questions, why does the game only have one save slot? This was an actual complaint, often aimed at classic Nintendo games from that era. Steven tells Peridot, be the Steven she wants to see in the world, which is a reference to the popular quote, be the change you want to see in the world. I did love that moment. I thought it was very sweet. Let's see.
I've got a really random question that's not connected to anything, but when you think about, when your mind goes to some weird places.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about games in games consoles, and then like how if memory serves, the GameCube discs were a real different size to other discs, and then it made me think about how they'd have no ability to play DVDs and stuff like PlayStation's later consoles, etc. But the PS1, the PlayStation, the first PlayStation, that could play CDs, couldn't it? Am I imagining that?
No, it could. Yeah, it could play audio CDs. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's carry on.
Yeah, no, it could, because that was pretty crazy, because it was just like, oh my god, look at this multimedia machine we have. It can play music. And sometimes if you tried sometimes people would try making copies of games with their own computers, and it wouldn't work. And what would happen when you put the CD into a PlayStation is it wouldn't play the game, but would instead just recognize it as an audio CD and start playing all the music from the game.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I remember friends at school trying that. It didn't work. You had to do special stuff to get past the PlayStation's copy protection. It wasn't that hard if you were an adult with a bit of money and you could buy the kit to do it. But a teenager, it's not even a teenager, a child at school was not going to be able to manage that himself on his home family computer, not without buying a few extra bits and some particularly special discs. Anyway. There we go. Let's see. Anything left? Obviously, the Life Historian kit is a reference to Meat Morps. There's a bunch of stuff here that's just like references to previous episodes. Yeah, the radio and fitness equipment is from Coach Steven. The Ranger Guy figure is from that episode with Onion. The Bucks Vote for My Dad shirt is from Shirt Club. That's about it. This is a lot of this stuff is just like all the ways they referenced previous episodes, but we covered those. Oh, there's a suggestion here that Pearl's enjoyment of the Cookie Cat jingle now may be inspired by her recent love of commercial jingles. Possible.
Oh yeah, possibly. Yeah.
So there you go.
I love that. I love that Cookie Cat stuff. What a lovely nod to the first episode of Steven Universe.
Loving it. So how are we feeling, Chris? I mean, this was exhausting. I got to apologize as well because this episode hasn't been as sort of in-depth or focused on character stuff as the previous two episodes. But I'll be honest with you, like we covered so much of it and in such detail. When we started this, Chris and I both agreed we're feeling pretty drained by it all right now. And not in a necessarily negative way, but just in a like it's been quite intense this last week or so, isn't it? Going through all
I think
these
we were saying we were quite glad they released the first one early.
Yeah, because we were able to just record 3 this weekend, whereas if we'd have had to record 4, we probably wouldn't have even gotten this far before feeling exhausted. So so sorry if this episode's a little anticlimactic, a little bit less like character study-y, which I know some people like really enjoy when we go do the deep divey stuff, which we definitely.
But I think a lot of that was done. Last episode.
Exactly. So we sort of covered it there. So a bit like the show, we've echoed the show in that we all the really deep character evolution is in the previous episode, and this one was just like a fun jaunt down memory lane. So there you go.
Has it quite hit you that the show's potentially over, or?
Yeah. When I was watching it, like the goodbyes and the seeing Steven drive away from Beach City, that really hit me. That made me more emotional than anything in these 4 episodes. Like, just
did you well up?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really sad. I was just really sad to see him to see him in the world go. Like they've been a big part of my life for so many years now that like it really feels kind of heartbreaking. And like because with this show, as you pointed out, you're not just part of the show when you watch it. You don't just watch the show. You're part of this community, and like especially us because we've stepped into the community in a slightly more tangible way. Because of the podcast, it just feels like it really is the end of this huge, very very sort of personal thing and very formative thing in many people's lives, and seeing all the comments on the thread on the Reddit page of people saying goodbye to the show, and there were people who started watching it when they were in primary school and have grown up with it, and there are people who were watching it as adults like me, saying goodbye to it, and people who had maybe found it in college or like had only found it recently. I got those people. My heart broke for those people. Like I only found it 3 months ago. Like it's gone too soon. Like I feel bad for those people. They're missing out on. They've missed out on this whole thing, this experience of growing with the show, like as we all have, and it's kind of amazing. But at the same time, I'm really looking forward to like whatever Rebecca does next. I know there's going to be a gap. She's talked a lot about taking a break, but she's also said that knowing herself, that break isn't going to be as long as she assumes it will be because she knows she's going to get the itch to start creating quicker than she thinks she will. But right now she's just looking forward to spending some time with Ian and getting a proper honeymoon because they got married obviously relatively recently. So, I'm very excited to see what she does next, whether it is Steven Universe related or whether it's a new thing. Please go somewhere different though. Don't do the Cartoon Network, Rebecca, please. They are the worst. Either way, like there's
Cartoon Network have, I know you say that flippantly, but genuine point from that. Like I don't mean to, there's some people at Cartoon Network no doubt that do great work, but they have made it difficult because one element of it being over is we at least know it's over. We at least know what's happening with the show and aren't in
this time
flux that we were in for so long.
Yeah, this time. The show ended and we didn't know it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And that is, but in some ways that made it exciting, theorizing, not knowing, getting these bombs of episodes. And that's what I suppose, in one sense, the people that found it recently are missing out on that. In another, they didn't experience hiatus pains and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, and as someone who, was watching the show from reasonably early on, like, yeah, that sucked. Like and as I said all the time when we came across this, like every time there was a hiatus, the real pain was just from the lack of knowing when. Who knows when, whenever.
And didn't we experience that? Wasn't the longest one like before the bomb that ended with Reunited? No,
probably. Yeah, one of the last big hiatuses either equaled or overtook it as one of the longest hiatuses the show ever went on. So yeah, for sure, we definitely experienced doing this podcast one of the biggest hiatuses the show had.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was.
Yeah,
questioning.
so, but I mean, I just want to thank everyone who's ever listened to anything of this. Whether you're the sort of person who's listened to 5 minutes and turned it off, you won't be hearing this. But I want those people to know I thank them too. Like anyone who's ever given us a comment, a like everyone who's ever. Anyone who joined the Discord, anyone who's ever tweeted at us or emailed us or just listened to just even a tiny bit of this, you all mean a lot to us because, it's this journey through this show for me didn't need. It's a thing I didn't know I needed or wanted because I started this looking to get my friend into this and share this thing I loved with my friend Chris. And I got that. And, like, what a great gift that was. So to get this extra gift, to get what a wonderful thing when a gift shows up you're not expecting or you didn't ask for, or, or it's not an occasion that you require one.
Yeah,
the community that's sprung up around this, specifically now,
community meeting Zach Callison, like getting the chance to interview him, and
and while we've made it clear this isn't over as such, it'll certainly slow down massively now because there's no more show. But we'll be coming back. We'll be doing I joke about it, but we probably will do a lot of those revisits where we watch old episodes and come back to talk about them. People still really want us to do Rosa's Scabbard, so we'll get to it. But like, I just want to say now at the end of the show, as in Steven Universe, specifically though to Steven University, the community that sprung up around this, because we've talked in general about the Steven Universe community and how great they've been, but I just want to say right now that what a wonderful thing it has been to get to know you all, and I'm so glad.
Definitely.
I'm so glad of that, and for you guys, and that we get to continue, and that's really nice, and I'm excited to continue growing our little group.
It's meant the world. Like I said earlier, I thank you all for your support of us. People doing drawings, people retweeting and playing a part of the Zach Callison interview. I thank you all, and I thank you to you, Dan, for making me sit down and watch the show. I think it's as you get older and you have less time and you have less sort of. Like you get pretty you find the relationship that you're going to be in, forever. You find you find the town you're going to live in together as you kind of do all those things. I think TV shows less and less make an impact. When I name you the shows that have meant the most to me personally, there's kind of only 2 shows of more recent years on that list, whereas 10 years ago, you got The Office, you got How I Met Your Mother, you got Doctor Who, you got Only Fools and Horses, of recent years, you got The Circle, and you've got, because of Jess, and you've got Steven Universe because of you, because of this podcast, because of that community, and what a delight to find a love for a show where you're thinking about it, where you're theorizing, and all of that kind of stuff. It's been an honor.
I agree, and I thank you for begrudgingly following suit to start with, because I said I remember the very first episode of this, and I said there's 2 ways this goes, and either one I'm happy with, and then one was you continue to hate the show, And it's
I don't
just
think it would have lasted. Like, I honestly, and it wasn't in my love for the show wasn't in any way deliberate, and it was very honest and natural throughout. But I don't think we would still be here if I kept hating the show. Not hating, that's a strong word, but if I never got into the show, I don't know how we could have reached this point.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure either. But like I said at the time, like there were two ways it was going. One was you were just going to keep rambling like negatively about it. That was just going to be funny, and that would have been the podcast.
But that humor is not sustainable across the hundreds of episodes.
Well, I guess we'll never know, because the other thing is what we got, which is that you would eventually fall in love with this really weirdly thought out, quirky, clever, brilliant show about this kid that's just like had the most crazy experience, and again that journey has been, I mean, and the thing is, it's not for us. When did we start doing this? 2017?
Yeah, something like that.
I think we started this in 2017. So what has it been? 3 years?
Might have been 16. I don't know.
Oh, that's bad, isn't it? I don't know that. Let's find out.
You having a quick look?
I'm going to find out, Chris. I'm going to find out right now. Let's see. You ready for the answer? So we started 2017.
What month?
April. Wow. 4th of April.
Oh wow! So we could have, we won't, but we could have made it so that the final episode was exactly 4 years or whatever it is since the
3 years. 3 years, yeah.
3 years
to the day.
Crazy.
Wow. Or at least the 4th is when I edited the first episode, because if you remember rightly, we waited, didn't we? We held up, like we recorded like 8 or 9 before we'd even named it.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so we were well ahead. We were recording them through March, and then we put them out in April, I think. But yeah, I've got to end this, because we're just gonna I could ramble like this forever and just talk about how great this has been, and thank everyone for being great, and everything's great, and you're all great, and like I'm just gonna sound like a fucking twat at a certain point. So I just want to finally say just thank you to everyone, and that we're not done. The next thing, well, I'll be honest with you, I'm really, really enjoying. I know it's not being as listened to by anywhere near as many people, but I am having an absolute blast doing Rewind reviews with Chris. It is surprisingly similar to this, because we are just taking these old things. Like, obviously, we're reviewing the show, these movies. Sorry. Sometimes in an often in a way that we review this, which is that one of us is fond of it. One of us doesn't have much connection to it. Sometimes it's a thing we both love, but it definitely has vibes of this. Like, you know, I'm trying to think of examples, but I can't remember the different things we've covered. But, you know, as we've gone through Rewind reviews, we've sort of... there are definitely things about this show that have shown up there. So I do encourage anyone who hasn't checked out Rewind reviews yet to give us a chance and maybe check that out as well. But we're going to keep doing that for a little while. We're having so much fun doing it. After that, comment below if there's another show you'd like us to tackle. But the one that just keeps coming up time and time again is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Are you leaving a pause for me because you want me to be the one that's like yay or nay?
No, I want your thoughts on that. That is what is coming up. That is what is, and there's timeline wise, Chris, if we were to do it and we started soon, we could have watched all of it just up to and be finished just in time for the Netflix live action show.
Why has that got a date yet then?
There's a rough time frame, yeah. Not an exact date. They had an exact date, but they've changed it now to like a... I can't remember. I think they've given a month, maybe, next year.
Yeah. We'll talk about it. It is the obvious one, and it is something... I'm certainly not adverse to doing it. I would want to be... Yeah, it just feels... Yeah, I think the challenge is there feels like there's so much going on at the moment that let's do another podcast. But I'm not adverse to Avatar.
Yeah, and the other danger is if we did start like another thing to replace, it would replace Steven University in terms of our recording schedule, because obviously Steven University is sort of going to slow down massively now, so it would fill that hole. But then that would mean we'd be less likely to do retrospective episodes of this podcast.
Yeah, and also rewind reviews that existed to fill. That was never meant to be a third thing. That was meant to fill. That was meant to replace the whole of Steven University.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, it was designed for something for us to record while Steven Universe was on hiatus, because we sort of ran out of ideas for hiatus episodes, or really strong ideas. We had a bunch of ideas that were like, we could do that, but if we're doing that, we're not going to be as impassioned about it. It's going to feel a bit flat. You know, we didn't want to do hiatus episodes where it was a good idea, but we just weren't that passionate about it, because a lot of people had suggestions that were really good. They just weren't things we were personally passionate about, and we were worried it would affect the quality of the podcast. So Rewind Reviews was born of the hiatus between Steven Universe and Steven Universe the movie, I think, or either that or the movie in the future. So yeah, for sure, like that was what that happened there. So yeah, I guess that is the thing. We keep doing that. But like, comment below. What sort of content you guys would be interested in seeing from us going forward?
Yeah, and just to clarify, honestly, not adverse to doing it. I just feel that maybe we need a few months or whatever.
I'm talking down the line. Yeah, for sure. I was definitely thinking, wait 5 months and then start at the very least, for sure. Not to clarify. I wasn't suggesting that next month we do, or next week we do the first episode of Avatar.
That gives us 5 months of, bonus Steven University content in between rewind reviews and stuff. So
I think that's what we're going to do. I think going forward, at least for the immediate future, it's going to be rewind reviews with the occasional Steven University. We'll definitely do one shortly with looking at those Rebecca Sugar interviews that have all been done. I think there's plenty of stuff she's talked about in there that's worth us chatting about. It might not be a long one like this where it's like an hour and a half. It'll probably be like a 45-minute one. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff to discuss. And in the meantime, as rewind reviews are coming, we've recorded a handful already. We're gonna get ahead and then start releasing those maybe weekly. We're pretty excited about some of the stuff we've got coming up on that. And then from individually, I've talked about it before, but yes, I am coming back to my rambling reviews on Infinity Train. And I will, once that's out of the way, I say out of the way like it's a bad thing, but once that's done, I'm going to come back to Steven Universe video games, and I'm going to be playing through Attack the Light. So plenty of content, but if there's anything
you can all look forward to Dan getting frustrated by that.
Yeah, you can all look forward to me losing my mind again. Yeah. Like the last episode of Unleash the Light was about an hour and a half of pain. I had to collect the last thing to 100% the game. I was like 99.9. There was just one item, one chest I needed to find. And it's just an hour of me looking for it and losing my mind. Nothing else happening. It's really... I put it up in full in the end, but there was a point when I nearly edited it just to save people the trouble. I put it in fast forward or whatever. But I was like, nope, you've been on this journey with me. I'm not robbing you of my insanity at the end. And it was like 1 a.m.
People enjoyed it from memory, though, if memory serves, though.
Yeah, but I barely... I refuse to go back to it because I don't want to look at it. I don't want to look at the comments. I don't want to... it was such a negative experience in some ways. I had such a good fun playing that game with everyone. But that last one was literally it was that highest. I remember you were very drained highs, by the end. The highest lows, and then what's the worst part of it all, Chris? And a little spoiler for that video, but where I found the chest was one of the first places I looked.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was...
So go check that out. There's plenty of things to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go check out me playing through Unleash the Light. But yeah, comment below what you want. And all the usual stuff applies, like subscribe, iTunes, Google Play, all that jazz. I'm at Dan Doolan. Chris is at C Billingham on Twitter.
Worth saying in particular, sorry to interrupt you, but if you enjoy this, check out, but you don't listen to, go on all your podcast platforms, check out Nothing But Static. Next episode is us talking about Disney Plus. So.
Yeah, and people always say, I listen to Nothing But Static, but I'm worried about spoilers. We don't spoil stuff, as a rule. We try to be very... what do you call it with it? Don't know what I'm looking for is there. We try to be very careful. We denote spoilers when we get to them, but generally speaking, we review stuff in a spoiler-free way.
Yeah, we're quite broad with the details given in the reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are broad. That's a good way to describe it. So yeah.
And also, I think the next few, there's not, for obvious reasons, there's not. It's not like that. There's a lot of new TV shows potentially coming in the next few weeks. So I think the episodes are going to be there's going to be less to spoil anyway. So yeah, I think there'll probably be a lot of subject episodes. So if you like the subject-y stuff of this, then check it out.
Agreed. So there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you next time on Stephen University. Oh, that felt weird.
That did feel weird. Oh, I felt emotional at the end there.
I was just like, I have to do it. I just have to do it. I'm just have to cut in on Chris and just.
Will you now insert an acoustic cover of you singing "It's Over, Isn't It"?
No, definitely not. I don't have the time before this goes up, sadly. But yeah,
I know you don't. That's a really mean thing to say. Look forward to that soon.
You're a bad person.
Bye.
Bye.